One, two, three. We don't want everybody in Mom and Dad Talks, where our favorite two people are Mom and Dad, and we have Hantie. What's up, Hantie? Mom and Dad wave. But we have a very, very special guest. A very special guest of the family. He's been knowing me literally all my life.
All of it.
And it's Dr. Loren Harris, and we're a part of his story and his journey, folks. He has a wonderful story about life, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to him tell about his story. And you know what, Loren, I'm just gonna sit back here because you know what I'm gonna call you. Explain because how did you meet our family and tell a little bit about your story, man? Just
How did I meet them?
Well, just go ahead. Let me be quiet.
They were always there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just always. Let's put it this way. You know how, like in the homes that you've literally lived in,
mm-hmm.
there was that original furniture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I look at your mom and your dad and your aunt and all the ones that we've talked about and haven't gotten to talking to about yet, that were all parts of that infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you this, every person's story, every journey, whether you're a believer or an atheist, it's either in the beginning or once upon a time, but everyone has a beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not see or understand how it started, but you will before it's finished. And that's the beauty of purpose.
Yeah.
And thank God that he works on a need to know basis.
Yes.
Gives it to you in spoonfuls, because that's also based on that need to grow basis. Like us being here tonight and catching up. It's a part of a need to know, need to grow system and order. Because, I was just kind of, before we got in here, we took right off like no time had passed.
Yes.
And you know why that is?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not just reminiscing of good memories.
Yeah.
We're reminiscing within divine memories.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
We're not just sitting here sharing these stories in any old space.
Mm-hmm.
We're sharing these stories within sacred space.
Yeah.
And when all those things come together, you can see that it was all worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You can understand how each person, all of us, played specific roles in each other's journeys.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful thing.
And see, the beautiful thing about this story is when I saw the Gold Coast, I teared up. I teared up because when you told me who you were and who I knew you were, and let me tell you something. I looked up to Dr. Loren. I did, folks. And he and Aaron Mills, that Carl and I looked up for both of them, and then he mysteriously just disappeared.
Yeah.
And we never knew what happened. It was just no one knew. And it was just kind of one of those things there. And let's pick up from that point if we can, right? Or if you want to talk a little bit beforehand. Let's just pick up from that point when from what we saw, Larry just left. Mm-hmm. We never saw Larry again. Excuse me, Dr. Loren again.
No, you can refer to both.
Yeah.
A lot of, especially if this ends up in my social, which I'm going to make sure it does.
What year did Dr. Loren actually leave Niles area?
Yeah.
Say that again.
What year did Dr. Loren actually leave Niles?
1976.
Okay.
1976.
Right. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was sitting here, I'm really kind of just shocked that I never thought of it this way until right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really the same thing. I tie it into, that's the second time. When you said he just disappeared, I heard that before. I was like, where did I hear that before? Just now when you said it, Todd.
Yeah.
And it reminded me that when I met my sister Sandra from my biological family, she was 2 when I was born.
Mm.
And, I had gone home to my birth family's house. I had gone there because she remembered when I reunited at the age of 32. She remembered. She said, I remember. I used to go looking in all the drawers in the hamper, and I was like, where's my baby? Who took my baby? Because I'd come home, but then my birth mother contracted, I was maybe, I think 3 weeks old, they said, and she contracted, what do you call it? Pneumonia. And so when the ambulance took her back to Berrien General from Benton Harbor, I was a newborn, so of course they took me with her. But what we didn't know was when she was originally there, she had confided her story into Ada Dixon, who you all know as Sister Dixon from how we got together.
Ada May.
Ada May, that's right. And my mother Lucille said when I met her, she said, and she had a letter and everything from Ada May that she didn't show me for 23 years. The 23 years that I knew my birth mother, she didn't show me that until she was on her deathbed. She was on hospice rather, but she wasn't right at the door, but she was in there. But anyway, she said that, you know, she had come to Benton Harbor, Michigan with 4 other women who I met them all. When I met her, she took me, those were the first people she introduced me to, those other 4 women. 5 of them had escaped Arkansas. They came from Pine Bluff, Arkansas for the boom in the factory business as women who all had children and no husbands, very little education. My mother had 6th grade education. And my mother had divorced my father, my birth father. All my siblings and I all have the same father, but I was a baby. But she wasn't married to him. She had divorced him when she got pregnant with me. But anyway, they all came for a better life and they came together. So, but my mother left my father because she found out he was a bigamist. He was married to 2 other women at the same time in other states because he was an over-the-road truck driver. And I actually met him on the telephone right before he died. She didn't want us to know each other, and I found out why later. But anyway, back to in 1976, you know, it was a regular, I'll never forget it. It was a 1 full week because it was a Wednesday, and I had come from the church school. I went to Fairview, and Mr. Eager and Mrs. Eager and all of them, and Scott Rusher and Jimmy Coleman and Susan Coleman. I rode in the car, and the Whiskey Sisters, all of that. That was the life. It was a regular life. And she and I had gone to Kroger's to shop midweek like we did all the time. Vanessa, my sister, was at the house, and we were babysitting my nephew Yuri. My sister Sharon's son, he was like 2, and he was visiting. And we left him there, and we went to the grocery store, and in the grocery store, Kroger's, but Eastgate Shopping Center.
Yes.
My mom, right next to JL Perry, remember? And then Pennies came in, and we were big time. And we were at that laundromat, and we were at that Kroger's, and I was like, ooh, I feel really hot. She had high blood pressure and stuff. And anyway, long story short, we get home, and I'm taking the groceries in, and I was going back and forth, carrying the groceries, and Vanessa's in there digging all in the bags, and I'm trying to hurry up because I don't want her to go into the cereal and get the prize out before I can. So I'm trying to hurry up, keep my eye on her. And on one of those trips, I literally tripped over my mom. And I'm like, what are you doing down there? And she's like talking out of her head when she was in the midst of a stroke. And by the time they came, the ambulance, didn't recognize any of us. And I'll never forget, we all stood there on those stairs at 1634 Superior Street, waving goodbye and thinking it's just, well, she'll be home in a bit. I thought later that night. She never came back. And nobody knew until sometime around the funeral, sometime around there, because I was still in denial. Mrs. Valentine was my counselor at school. And they came and pulled me out of class because I crawled out the window and got on my bike and went to school the next day like nothing had happened. And they said, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at home, but people are coming, blah, blah, blah. And I went and I came home, and it was after the funeral. And everybody was sitting around talking, and my Aunt Candy, and everybody's talking. The doorbell rang, and the minute the doorbell rang, everybody shut up. Everybody dead silent. Everybody stopped, and they all looked at me. And I'm like, what? Nobody's looked at me. And she opened the door and came in. I was like, Rima Smith. She goes, well, I'm you know, how's everybody, And she just walked up to me. I'll never forget it. Like it was nothing. She goes, I'm here on official business. I'm with the state of Michigan. I don't know how much they've told you, if anything, but I have a lot on we have a lot of stops today, she said. She held out her hand and handed me a trash bag. She goes, you're not Larry Dixon. You never have been. That's not a real person.
Oh my.
Your name is Loren Harris.
Mm,
You're awarded the stage. So you
mm,
need to be gone in 20 minutes. Pack what you can in this bag.
oh my
And
God.
all I could think about was, what about, what about, what about?
Mm,
What about my best friend Scott? What about Pathfinders?
Mhm.
What about the stuff in my desk at school? What about my dog in the backyard?
mm,
What book do I take? What game is my favorite? How many pairs of pants can I fit in here?
mm,
But
Mm.
as I was putting everything in that bag, which was a garbage bag,
oh,
I had no idea that it was the beginning of a bag that I would reach into for the next 5 decades, hoping that I would pull something out that was worthy to be
oh,
called something other than trash.
oh,
And that's why I fight the way I do today,
oh,
to do my work with young people and for foster care reform.
mhm,
Here we are all these years later, and not much as far as the needle of change
mm,
has happened. And
mm,
so anyway, they took me, and
mm,
it all began that night in the Goldcast video. Thank God speaks for me. I don't have to tell that story all the time. But, again, and if you were upstairs in my home, right inside my front door, I have my birth mother and Ada Mae Dixon right above each other. And it's so interesting because Ada Mae the picture is in the 30s
mhm,
when she was a teenager
Mm.
and like 18. And it was in like 1938. She was born in 1920.
Mhm.
mm,
And then my birth mother was a year before she passed, and she was in her 80s.
wow,
So, and actually, Ada Mae was older than my birth mother.
Mm.
And so, but in the pictures upstairs,
Mhm.
my birth mother's older than Ada Mae.
Wow.
And so they hang there. And I just stare at that picture of those two women, and I go, try to go back at it, and sometimes I can feel that God just takes me into the room where I can overhear their conversations that were shaping
Mhm.
this world and this work that I do today.
Yeah.
How there's no way they could have known that they were playing specific roles intended to each of them, that they weren't making any mistakes. What they were doing was dealing the best they could with the script that they had been handed, because they were a part of a greater plan. They were a part of a greater plan, and neither of them made any mistakes. Of the 22 moms I had, I don't believe any of them made any mistakes. They were merely dealing with what God considered keeping their journeys interesting.
mhm,
And so, yeah, there was a lot of trauma and different things over the years. But again,
mm,
how bad could it have truly have been with what it affords me,
mhm,
a divine opportunity to touch people's lives in the way that I get to every day. So the memories, like Philadelphia church, the rudiments, I'm going to tell you, it was really what kept me alive. A lot of those things, those first few months,
mm,
when I remember the first house they put me in, they weren't Adventist. And the first thing they threw in front of me that second day, I didn't eat that first day. I went to bed, still daylight.
mm,
That was the first night of the first abuser.
mm,
Came through a hole in the wall that first night. That's in my early work.
mm,
I don't talk about it too much, but I needed to at the beginning to establish where God was taking me in this work. So it's out there if anybody ever wants to find it. But they the things about the memories just in here tonight when we're talking about the lodge hall and cradle roll and primary and
mhm,
MV, and when it got changed to
AY.
AY, that was it. I was like, what? Right. 13th Sabbath and
Yes.
investment and
yeah,
camp meeting and all the different things that,
yeah,
when I entered that system, I had songs that I would sing.
mm, mm,
I, I had my Pathfinder sash with all my accomplishments
yeah,
on it, that I could see, that I could hold on to and remember that there was a world before the one that I was currently in. And that proved to me to believe that there would be a world beyond where I currently was. And it kept me, and it held me. I learned very soon after leaving and going into this place that's when I learned the true meaning of falling in love, because I remember God told me. That is why I've given it that name. Most people refer to romantic things, but when you are in here, anytime you fall down, know that you are falling in love, because it is I who will catch you. And so, yeah. And so it just turned everything instantly. I remember, I tell this part all the time, and I don't know how many people believe it, but I know it's true because I'm here with them as we speak. I remember every home they dropped me off for, because Bernadine and Delbert, y'all remember how I was. And I would hide and they'd say, go play or go unpack. And I'd say, okay, but I'd be somewhere close listening. What are they saying about me? And they'd always say, oh, he was in private school, he's a smart boy. Da 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 da. You're gonna enjoy him. However, if you come up on him and he's alone and you hear him having all these conversations with no one there, he has a lot of imaginary friends. And I remember looking around and I literally would see my angels and I'd be going like this and they'd be telling me to be quiet, because they were never imaginary. They were with me then and they're here with me now. I see them with me. They're with me. They've always been with me. And so it's just, it's my, I relate to all these things the same as now if I read the Bible and I hear the story of Jesus walking on water, turning water to wine, miracle, any miracle. I know that they are true. That's why I keep the bell of purpose near me, because I ring it to remind me to never forget that the truth has a ring to it, just like that bell, because I've been hearing it every day, every day, every day.
I mean, you know, it's a miracle.
It is.
That we're talking tonight. And I hope that wow, I got to bring you back because there's so much I know.
Yeah.
There's so much more to this story, folks, because we wouldn't even go get started tonight the way this was going. I'm just gonna be real with you, because we have so much to catch up on and so much to talk about here, because when you told me your story, I cried. Because Larry, I looked up to you. You're my friend. You and Aaron, you guys were inseparable.
We were.
Gone, it was just kind of like, well, what happened to our friend?
Yeah.
And when you told that story, my heart just ripped apart saying, wow, I just can't imagine what you went through in those years.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy that we reunited.
I am too.
I'm so happy we reunited. And folks, I just want to encourage you guys. There is a God that looks out for you. Despite the bad circumstance you may be around, and you can call upon him and he will deliver. Sometimes we wonder why God allows something to happen, but it's always for our betterment. And we have to trust him in that. And it's hard to even end tonight, because it's just, this with mom and dad talks, because these are the hard ones to end, because it's I got to bring you back. I
would love that. And I just want to say one thing in closing. I don't want people to get it twisted, but I'm going to say something. You know, I heard that I said that little thing about don't cry for me, Justina. I want to reiterate that point right here, and don't get it twisted. These tears that you see, they're tears of joy. Because, you know, when you believe in a plan that is, you know, a master plan, and you know that you are co-creating everything with what is greater than yourself, you know that you can count it all joy. Just like we were instructed. You know that at the end of whatever it is, every decision, there's either one R to the right and one to the left. You're either going to look to the left and regret, or look to the right and rejoice. And I choose to rejoice. I have faith in all that has brought me to this place, this journey. It is an honor to be able to be in the midst of kingdom work. And I want you to know that when you see these tears today, these are tears of joy. And know this, no matter where your tears originated, if all of our tears were books, can you imagine the wonderful libraries this universe would hold? So I am grateful, because every one of them is just like a scar. It has a story that rides sidecar. It is immediate proof of healing. And it is something to tell you, if you just keep going, keep growing, and keep showing others what you have been blessed to show.
Yeah.
You will be escorted from this world into the next in whatever form you take. And you will be able to, you're going to hear those words that we all long for, whether we know it or not. Well done. Well done. Good and faithful servant. Come on in here. We've got a seat at the table. We've got a seat at the table. So take that with you. Thank you so much. I really honored this opportunity, and anytime, just let me know I'm here for you.
Yes, we're going to definitely have you back because there's more to your story.
Absolutely.
There's more to the story that will inspire you. So I'm going to leave it on that, folks. Till next time, we'll see you on Mom and Dad Talks. And like I said, Dr. Loren Harris, thank you so much.
Of course.
We had a fun time together and reminiscing and stuff. So folks, hug your family members, enjoy those moments. Until next time, we'll see you on Mom and Dad Talks.
See you guys.